Hello guys, welcome to another video. Today we're gonna talk about countries which can be a good alternative to living in Portugal. So if you're considering moving to Portugal, but you're still not sure whether the country is the best option for your needs, we will discuss a number of countries that for one reason or the other can be a good option for you. And before we start the usual talk, as always, if you want to travel, move or invest abroad, hit the like button, check our other videos, book a consultation call with me, the links in the description, and most importantly, subscribe. Let's start. We'll start today's video with Albania, which has a lot of similarities and differences with Portugal, but in my opinion, it can be a great alternative to the Iberian country, especially if you are a citizen from a country with a strong passport in which you wouldn't need a visa to travel to the Schengen area in the first place. Albania has a similar climate as most of the continental Portugal, similar landscapes, and even the shape of the two countries is also quite similar. Both countries are also very safe, but that is probably when the similarities end and the differences start. Albania is neither in the European Union, nor it has a defined date to join the bloc. So if you want to live somewhere aiming to get a new passport in the future, Portugal is definitely a better choice. Albania also doesn't use the euro currency, instead it uses the Albanian lek. The cost of living in the country is then much lower than in Portugal, including everything related to real estate, the most significant item in the cost of living in Portugal. So in short, Albania is a great alternative to Portugal, especially if you want to lead a similar lifestyle as you would in the Iberian country, but for about half of the costs you would have to live in Portugal and to keep renewing your residence permit in the country. The second country in today's list is Brazil. Brazil is another country that can be a good fit if you're looking for an alternative to Portugal, especially if cost of living is the most critical aspect of your choice. It goes without saying that Portugal and Brazil have a lot in common, since Brazil used to be a Portuguese colony, and for a brief time, even the Portuguese court was actually based out of Rio de Janeiro. Both countries speak the same language and share a number of essential cultural elements. Portugal is, however, much more popular than Brazil for a number of reasons. Since Portugal is in the European Union, a significant amount of expats will certainly prefer it over Brazil. But that doesn't mean that Brazil does not have important advantages over Portugal. The critical advantage of Brazil over Portugal is the cost of living, which is currently about 40 to 60% lower than in Portugal. Apart from that, if you like to live in a large metropolitan area, Sao Paulo is definitely much larger than Lisbon. And as a matter of fact, the city's population is much bigger than the population of Portugal as a country. There are also more economic sectors to invest in Brazil than in Portugal, due to its huge domestic market. But investments in Brazil are usually riskier than in Portugal. Personal income taxes in Brazil, and oftentimes corporate income taxes as well, are also much lower in Brazil than in Portugal. The main disadvantage of Brazil versus Portugal is the public safety issue. Even though crime rates are overall decreasing in Brazil, they are still incomparably higher than in Portugal. Brazil also has a pretty good overall choice of residence permits and visas, including options for retirees, and it also has recently launched a digital nomad visa. Spain is the next country in our list today, and probably one of the most obvious choices for anyone who is considering moving to Portugal, but also willing to check other options. The proximity of the two countries, the similar climate, and the similar cost of living are some of the reasons that may make you consider whether Portugal is the best choice in your individual case versus Spain. The main advantage of Spain compared to Portugal is that in Spain, consider that the country is much larger, you will have much more options in terms of cities and regions to settle down than in Portugal. If you like large cities, both Madrid and Barcelona in Spain are considerably larger than Lisbon, the biggest city in Portugal. Another advantage of Spain is that the Spanish language is fairly easier to learn than Portuguese. The main disadvantage of Spain versus Portugal are taxes. In Portugal, at least for the first 10 years, you can enjoy quite low taxes with the Portuguese non-habitual residence program, which applies to most types of income earned abroad. After this period, both Portugal and Spain are high-tax countries with similar rates. Another significant disadvantage of Spain is that if you are a non-EU citizen, the financial requirements to get a residence permit in Spain are higher than in Portugal in most cases. Now we're going to the next country, which is Turkey. Turkey is one of my favorite countries, and it is easy to understand why. It has a relatively mild weather year-round along its Mediterranean coast, one of the most delicious cuisine in the world, and some of the most beautiful landscapes you will see in Europe and in the Middle East. On top of that, it is quite easy to get a residence permit in Turkey, and the cost of living is among the lowest in the world if we consider countries that could be a good alternative to Portugal. I think the main advantage of Turkey versus Portugal is how inexpensive life is in Turkey compared to Portugal. If we take similarly sized cities, the cost of living in Turkey is probably about half of what it is in Portugal. Another interesting aspect is that in Turkey you can sort out residence permits directly in the country. In Portugal, unless you are an EU citizen, and in the case of some other exceptions, you will first need to deal with the Portuguese embassy in your country of residence. One of the main disadvantages of Turkey is that it is not in the Schengen area. So by having a residence permit in Turkey, you will only be able to travel to the Schengen area if your passport already allows you to do so. So for example, if you are a citizen from the UK, from the US, from Canada, this won't make much difference to you. But if you are from India or China, for example, you will still need to get a visa to travel to most countries in Europe. The next country is the tiny nation of Andorra. Andorra is another good alternative if you're considering options beyond Portugal, especially if you're extremely wealthy and if you enjoy beautiful mountainous landscapes. This tiny European country is surrounded by Spain and France, which are both EU members, but Andorra is not part of the European Union and it is unlikely to join the bloc anytime soon. The main advantage of living in Andorra is that it is an extremely low-tax country in Western Europe. Unlike Portugal, where taxes are only attractive if you are in the non-habitual residence program, which is an advantage you can only use for 10 years, in Andorra, income taxes are always low. The income tax for wealthy individuals, and actually for everybody, is 10% at a personal rate. But like everything in life, Andorra also has its disadvantages. There are basically two disadvantages when you compare Andorra and Portugal. The first is that Andorra is very small, both in area and population. So if you like the cosmopolitan life of Lisbon, you'll definitely not find it in Andorra. The second disadvantage is that Andorra is relatively difficult to reach. Even though it is not very far from cities like Barcelona in Spain and Toulouse in France, there are neither railways nor airports in Andorra, so you have to either drive or take a bus. Now we're gonna talk about the last country in today's list, which is Slovenia. And just like all other options in this video, it may be a good alternative to Portugal in your particular case. Slovenia is a tiny nation in Central Europe, which got independent in the 90s after it separated from Yugoslavia. Slovenia and Portugal share a number of similarities. Both are extremely safe countries with stable economies, use the euro single currency, and are in the Schengen area. Slovenia is, however, much smaller than Portugal, both in terms of area as well as in its population. While Portugal has roughly 10 million inhabitants, Slovenia has just slightly more than 2 million inhabitants living in its territory. Slovenia has two important advantages that may make you prefer it over Portugal. The first one is its location. Slovenia is right at the center of Europe, and you'll be just a few hours drive from cities like Vienna in Austria, Milan in Italy, Zurich in Switzerland, and many others. The second advantage is that Slovenia offers a similar lifestyle as Portugal does, but it is much more off the radar, so to speak. So if you want tranquility but also a great location, Slovenia might be an excellent option. The main disadvantage of Slovenia is that it is relatively difficult to get a residence permit in the country if you are a non-EU citizen. So basically, if you are an EU citizen, Slovenia has a lot to offer and it is a great alternative to Portugal. But if you are not, the financial investment required to establish residence in Slovenia makes it a much less appealing option than the current residence permit options available in Portugal. That's it for today's video. Write down in the comment section if you think another country should be in this video, another country which you also consider a good alternative to Portugal. And to end the video, the usual tired gibberish. If you want to travel, move, or invest abroad, hit the like button, check our other videos, book a consultation call with me, the link's in the description. And most importantly, subscribe. See you next time.